and that people would join there directly.
I'll turn on the light. Give me a second. So the pro account, you get to push it out directly to YouTube Live, is it?
Yeah. And I think in the non-pro one, you have a 40-minute limit. Great. We'll start in 2 minutes. Let's just wait for people to join.
With the pro account, you get to push it out live. I think what we can do is keep it to about 30 minutes for the actual interview, and then we can let people jump in, ask questions or whatever for the remaining.
Right. Sounds good. Great. So I think we'll get started. So again, for everyone who's joining in, the idea is like we'll do a mock interview sort of where I'll ask Arindam a question, and we'll go through the whole approach, and just as he would do in an interview, in a real interview. And for those who are observing, you can put in questions in the comments as and when you have something that comes up, or if you have a better approach that you have in mind, you can put those things, and at the end we can address all that and wrap it up. Great. So great, Arindam. I think like maybe you can start with a small introduction about yourself. Introduce yourself to everybody who's watching.
Sure, Jaren. Thanks for everyone who is tuning in. I'm Arindam. I am currently a technical product manager at Hyperverge, which is a AI firm in India and US, and we basically solve for fintech and geospatial use cases. So we have multiple products around eKYC. We have deduplication system for banks. So I'm heading about three of those products. My product journey started with Shopee, which is a e-commerce firm in Singapore. So I was handling the AI team there for doing personalized search and recommendations. Prior to that, I have about 3.5 years of experience in deep learning as well as full stack development. So yeah, that's a very brief intro about me.
Great. So okay, so Arindam, so what we'll do is sort of like a product design or design thinking kind of round. So Naukri, right? Naukri has faced a lot of competition of sorts from LinkedIn ever since LinkedIn has come into the picture. So how would, if you were the product manager at Naukri, like what would you do to like improve Naukri? And by improve, I mean you can think of different ways to improve and like pick up anything that you feel is right.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a valid question. So let me rephrase the question in a way that would make sense to me as well as to you. So
Right.
we are looking at tackling competition for Naukri. So that would ultimately delve down to improving Naukri in a way so that it becomes the default choice or sort of the to go choice in the job hunt market, right?
Right. And
Right.
even for like I mean you can look at the stakeholders of the product, like
Mhm.
the job hunters and the recruiters also, so like you can pick up whom you want to improve it for.
So Okay. So any service like Naukri or LinkedIn or JobStreet, Monster, any of them are effectively operating on two models, which is a two-way marketplace model where a recruiter for an organization is looking for an employee. So then that's a prospective candidate and a recruiter. And there is a three-way marketplace also in which there are consultants involved, where the recruiter gives out where the actual recruiter or the actual organization gives out a consulting offer to a person or an organization to find them employees, right? So that connection also happens throughout. So I would like to bring out the point that this is a very broad problem statement to solve.
Right.
So I would like to narrow it down by sort of first looking at the various set of customer groups or customer segments who are there on Naukri and LinkedIn and so on. And then we can delve down and figure out which is the customer segment we should target that makes the most sense to us.
Sure.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, sounds good.
All
Go
right.
ahead.
Give me a couple of minutes to delve down into the customer segments and then I will come back to you with the segments.
Meanwhile, for those who are tuning in, like if you guys have approaches that you think are valid, you can put that in the comments. Arindam can't see that right now, so he won't be able to like look at that. But you guys can like jump in with your opinions and the approach that you think can be taken here.
Right. Okay. So the customer segments that I'm looking at broadly are blue collar jobs and white collar jobs, right? So blue collar jobs are those are basically we're looking at BPO jobs, we're looking at manual labor jobs, we're looking at openings for restaurants for waiters and so on, right?
Right.
So this area is largely untapped, and currently none of the job sites in India actually uh, cater to this market segment. Most of these job listings go out through WhatsApp and Telegram groups and so on. The other segment is a white collar job that is further segmented into a two-way marketplace and a three-way marketplace. So in a two-way marketplace, the stakeholders would be recruiters and prospective candidates. And in a three-way, we also have the consultant. So we effectively have three personas here.
Right.
Stakeholder, the candidate, the three personas here, the recruiter, the consultant, and the candidate.
Right.
So we can either tackle the blue collar segment and see how Naukri can sort of diversify its user base by entering a new territory, or we can focus on one of the personas effectively, which is in the white collar sector, which is the prospective candidate, the consultant, and the recruiter, and sort of try to optimize the features for one of these
Sure.
personas.
Sure. I think you can choose one of those stakeholders
Mhm.
wherever you think like improvement is required, or the lowest hanging fruit that you see there.
Mhm. Okay. So, if it's all right with you, we'll take a look at recruiters in terms of both the marketplaces that exist on Naukri. So, we are talking about end recruiters here. So, a typical persona would be at a HR at Goldman Sachs or a HR at Dunzo, right? So,
Right.
what are we not solving for them? We can look at some of these use cases and then sort of delve down into these
Sure.
categories, right?
Sure. Sure.
All right. So I'll be breaking down this persona further into two or three separate personas and look at their dedicated use cases, and then we can start solving for them.
Sure. Sounds good.
All right. So the personas that we will look at is in terms of tech organizations, we look at a HR at a MNC and then the HR at a startup, right?
Okay.
For a HR at MNC, their primary problem is that every job application, their problem is scale. They have too many job applications to manage.
Right.
Every application has tons and tons of candidates who apply,
Right.
and they have to work with a host of consultants because of the nature of the hiring that happens, right? So if you
Right.
look at the typical HR who is at a Goldman Sachs or a Visa, they are also working with 20, 30, even 50 hiring agencies to coordinate with them, right?
Right. Right.
The, the other persona is a HR at a startup. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so their problem is that they have no employer branding. So they
Right.
face two kinds of problems. Either they face new applications, which is a big problem in startups. The application coming in rate is very, very low. And second is there are poor quality of applications that come into them.
Right.
The fourth problem that they face is that when they hire consultants, they need cost-effective marketplaces to work for them because they are operating on a limited budget. And right now, there is no transparency when you hire consultants, right?
Right. Right.
If you look at the common thread between both of these personas, we can see that coordination with consultants is a big problem that most of the people are facing right now.
Right.
So I will first sort of describe how people do it right now, and then we can sort of question its efficiency and see if something can be done to improve it.
So
So
by coordination with consultants, do you mean with consultants that they already have, like
uh,
working better with them?
yeah, finding consultants, employing them, getting transparency from them, getting results, and so on. All the problems of so the entire life cycle of a recruitment firm, basically,
Okay.
in
Okay.
terms of hiring third-party consultants to get through to you,
Right.
right?
And
So,
here the main, like the persona would usually be an HR from an MNC or like a big company, right?
right, yeah, we're looking at the HR of a MNC, right?
Cool. Cool. Great.
Okay. So when we're trying to hire consultants, there are four stages that we're looking at. We're looking at sourcing. Is where do I find the best consultants? How do
Right.
I know they will deliver results? The second is transparency and reporting. How do I track their progress? Right?
Right.
How do I know that they are sending me the best candidates? The
Right.
third is the third is feedback. How do I tell these people that they are not doing a great job? That I need better people or I need a certain particular subset of people, right?
Right.
So out of these three use cases, let's look at the first one first, which is sourcing. So
Right.
currently, how consultants are sourced is that you put out your listings on the websites like LinkedIn or Naukri right now, and then consultants find that listing and approach you through some medium, through your email, through LinkedIn, and get in touch with and tell you that, hey, we are a recruitment agency and we would like to partner with you, right? So this is the first model. Now let's discuss why it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it takes me away from the system. So I posted a job listing on Naukri. Now there are random consultants getting in touch with me over WhatsApp, over email, over LinkedIn, right? It's uncoordinated. I have to keep track of 4 or 5 places, right?
Right.
So this is the first problem that we're looking at. Second is once you hire a consultant, what they tell you is that, okay, I'll come back to you in a month with good candidates or within 2 weeks. And they come back to you with an Excel sheet of these candidates, right? With an
Right.
initial resume screen or something. Now, this is again a broken experience because if you have hired 10 consultants, you're looking at 40, 50 different Excel sheets, right? There is no coordination, no collaboration, no way to report back to them.
Right.
And the consultants also face a problem here because since there are multiple sheets and multiple CRMs to track, they end up calling the same candidate again and again. So
Right.
I've been on both sides of this problem where I would get 3 calls from Goldman Sachs from 3 different HRs, right?
Right.
All of them representing the same firm. So it means that thrice the amount of money has been wasted on me, which could have been done by one person approaching me, right? Okay, so can we start delving into the sourcing problem first, and then we can look at the coordination problem?
Right. So to outline the sourcing problem, what you mean is like finding the best consultants out
Finding the best consultants with the least amount of effort, in
there.
the
Right.
least amount of time, with the highest quality,
Okay. Okay.
right?
Great.
So, right,
And I think like one thing is that you mentioned is currently in the current process, it's you put up a job listing and which is meant for candidates and consultants sort of come as a byproduct of it.
right.
Okay.
So there is actually no active way in the market,
Right.
uh, or at least an actively used way. It's an extremely bifurcated market
Right.
where things are working through networks or some HR has a friend who works at a consultancy, something like that. So
Right.
it's not a meritocracy. we can look at converting into a meritocracy, right?
Sure, sure.
So the way to solve this would be to first take these use cases. So let's start with sourcing the best. And since our goal was to sort of make Naukri the better place, the one goal that would be looking at is retention, right? So here, when I say retention, I mean that when the person is coming into the Naukri marketplace,
Right,
the HR at MNC, they don't have to leave the Naukri environment
right,
to
right,
complete this life cycle, right?
right.
So we would like to host this inside the Naukri environment, right? So let's tackle sourcing first. Uh, so right now the marketplace that Naukri has is two-way. It doesn't actually cater to the three-way marketplace,
Mm-hmm.
which is why you can also see listings. I will keep using Goldman Sachs as an example here. From a Goldman Sachs HR person, and then also random consultancies, 10 or 15 consultants that also have the same listing,
Right.
right? So we can look at creating an official consultant persona
Okay.
on on Naukri who are registered as third-party consultants who do not have the right to post listings. So this starts depolluting Naukri's employer job availability database, right? So we look at creating a separate persona called consultant, right? Now, how is it different from a recruiter persona,
Mm-hmm.
right? What can they do? Recruiter can post listings, but a consultant can only own listings, not post them, which means that a consultant can be given the opportunity to own this listing and operate on top of it by a recruiter. They won't actually be able to consult for it, right?
Okay.
Okay. The second is a consultant marketplace. This will be similar to how you can see candidates and their profiles and select the shortlist the candidates and get in touch with them. You can look at consultant marketplace. We will delve deeper into this by looking at what metrics should we look at by looking at a consultant, right? So we have solved two problems so far. One is cluttered listings and consultants reposting the same jobs. So uh, that solves the cluttered listing problem. And then we have the marketplace,
Right.
right? So with the marketplace, we make sure that given the right amount of metrics, we are able to hire meritocratically the best consultant that I can get for this particular role. If I see this person has a 97% NPS, let's say at hiring engineers, then I know that if I want software engineers, this consulting firm is my team, right? I want to hire them,
Right.
right? And with the job listing, since I still posted the job listing and the consultant just owns it, all his activity that is happening on Naukri is also being tracked by me. So I can see, I don't have to wait for his updates. I don't have to call and follow up with him. I can simply go to Naukri, look at my listing and understand what progress this person has made.
Right. Right. Right.
Also, feedback can be instantaneous. If I think he's not doing a good job, I should be able to take a look and immediately know that he's not doing a good job, right?
Right.
Okay. So now in order to build the marketplace, we have to evaluate what are the parameters on which a consulting firm should be measured, right?
Mhm.
So coming back to the initial problem statement of a MNC HR, I want to hire the best consultant, which is what we are trying to solve for
Right.
the in the least amount of time. So the first metric will be the TAT or the turnaround time, which is if I make a listing with 10 in for which I want 100 applications, 200 applications, 500 applications. What is
Right.
the turnaround time for the number of applications for this person, right? So this is the TAT. So let's say we measure TAT at 100, 200, and 500. Why these numbers? Because we are looking at MNC people, Infosys, TCS, Cognizant, who are looking at a large number of listings to filter out, right?
Right.
Second is the approval rate, because I also want the best quality candidates.
Right.
So we will create a feedback mechanism where we will keep a track of out of the 100 candidates that they submitted, how many went to the next round, not the tracking further beyond that. So that we know the approval rate gives an indication of the quality of this firm, right?
Okay.
And third is the responsiveness. So we will have SLAs on the consulting firm responding back to the HR on their queries, on the progress, etc. And then we can also track the percentage of times they maintained the SLA, they broke the SLA. So someone who has a 99% SLA non-breach is going to be a much better responsive candidate for a consulting firm than someone with, let's say, 80% SLA, which means he doesn't respond on time 20% of the time, right? So on these three metrics, we create a marketplace for consultants. so that the HRs now can hire the best consultants, know who will get them the best candidate for their use case, and also know how to deliver feedback to them, right?
So like,
So
how do you see this process? Like, in which direction do you see it happening? Like, HRs of big companies go out looking for consultants, or companies put up job listings and consultants, come and own
yeah,
own
so
them.
so in this marketplace setup, there will be two ways. If I am an HR who already has clarity that I want to hire a consultant,
Right,
the consulting, I can put out this listing and mark it as open to consultants. They
right,
can come to me through the Naukri platform, so it's completely seamless, and I can distinguish between whether this is a candidate application for my job or a consulting firm telling me, because now there is a separate personality for it. So I
right,
can track this separate type of user, right? One. So this is the inbound request. The
right.
other way would be
You
that.
basically, you don't have to create a separate listing, like you're creating a single listing. Okay.
Exactly. So this one listing now works to get consultants
Right,
and also get applications. The other way is that this reduces your clutter, because if you can simply mark it as not open to consultants, and then consultants will not bother you that I can get you engineers and so on. You
right,
make the decision when you want to hire a consultant, and then you can make the best choice,
right,
right?
right,
The other way would be outbound. Since a marketplace exists, you can choose to ignore all the consulting requests that are coming into you, go to the marketplace and pick the best consultant for your requirement. So this is like a Upwork or a freelancer for hiring, right?
right, right,
So now let's go back to the original question: is how does this become a differentiator?
right, right,
So right now, neither LinkedIn nor Naukri solves for consultants properly. LinkedIn is very, very hostile to consultants in
right,
their approach, which means that having a LinkedIn recruiter account, you have to go through a lot of verification process, which consultants typically can't get, and you won't be able to use another company's name in a consulting. If you're a consultant firm, for example, if you are, let's say, Tatva Consulting, you want to post a job for Goldman Sachs. If you use that keyword, your listing will be banned because you are not Goldman, which
right,
means you have to say, you can always see listing job list LinkedIn job listings as a reputed MNC firm or reputed technology firm, right?
right,
So LinkedIn doesn't solve for them. Naukri solves for them differently by allowing them to post whatever they want. This
yeah,
creates confusion for the candidates. This creates confusion for the recruiters, because they didn't realize that it's the same listing that they had posted. So
right,
applications are bifurcated. So if Naukri is able to solve this, the best quality of consultants will migrate to this platform, bringing the best quality HRs to come to this platform. And about 60 to 70% of tech hiring happens in MNCs. This is
right,
a assumption that I'm making. We can validate this number in the future. So ultimately, we will see this marketplace setup here that will have a network effect. We can track this by seeing the by first seeing the number of duplicate listings decrease. So that is the first metric that I want to track as a success criteria for this product. So metric of, so basically percentage decrease in duplicate listings, percentage decrease in duplicate listings, sorry, right? The second metric that I will look is the stickiness for a MNC recruiter, right? So stickiness will tell me, so I will basically look at DAU upon MAU, right? Which
mhm,
will tell me that, okay, compared to before, whether the recruiter is now spending more and more time on this platform or not, right? And three is, I'll just look at the pure metric of increase in the number of applications processed by my target segment, right? So
right,
if this user segment is now able to process 300 applications in a week, where previously they were only able to do 200, I know that I have made an increase,
right.
right?
So, like, going back to the basic assumption that, so basically you want to improve the platform for consultant ecosystem, right?
Right.
Because is it because you think like a lot of hiring happens through consultants?
So this number can be validated by the fact that by just looking at the number of listings on Naukri.
Right,
So in order to validate the hypothesis, coming back to the assumption that a lot of hiring happens through consultants, we
right,
can look at two numbers. One is the actual number of recruitment consultancies in India,
right,
which will tell us how many organizations are operating, because if it was not profitable, they won't be here,
right,
right? That is
right,
one. And second would be, we look at duplicate listings with the same keywords
right, right,
to validate whether this is a problem or not.
right. So I think consultants are like do give a big chunk of the hiring requirements. but like what is the value that they provide in the hiring process? So like what do you think consultants core value is, and does that value still stay in this platform of yours that you're building?
Right. So a consultant's core value is in terms of sourcing.
Okay.
A consultant is not qualified to make actual hiring decisions. A
Right.
consultant is not qualified to make actual interview schedules and so on. A
Right.
consultant is at the top of the funnel. So if you look at the conversion funnel for a typical hire, it starts from sourcing, then it goes to processing, recruitment, background checks, and then the actual hire. In
Right.
all of this funnel, the only place where a consultant is involved in source is sourcing, right?
Right.
So
Right.
they have the capabilities to broadcast jobs. They make calls to people, right?
Right.
So effectively as a BPO for source. So the only thing that we have changed is that we have migrated this chunk of the value proposition to our platform. So they are not sourcing it on a random CRM or a Excel sheet. They are actually sourcing and bringing those listings back to the HR, right? Instead of having it on an Excel sheet, then sending it to the HR a month later or so on, we are maintaining that same value, but delivering it fluently and quickly to the person who is actually in need of that value. This is one. Second is we migrated this value to the platform so that now we can also absorb a chunk of it.
Right. Right. So maybe yeah, are you done with the success criteria? Like maybe we can talk about the trade-offs a little bit.
Mhm.
Like I mean, one thing I can think of is like you mentioned consultants won't be able to post listings. So one of the major source ways of sourcing candidates is by posting their own listing and then routing them to the job, like to the employer. So will this affect consultants, or like how do you see that happening?
So the primary way consultants actually source jobs, source candidates is not through listings,
Okay.
but by actually reaching out to the candidates, which is basically outbound hiring,
Right.
where we reach out to prospective candidates through email or through LinkedIn emails,
Right.
emails, so on, right, on phone, etc. So a good metric to track this risk is to look at the number of applications that have happened on consulting based posts, right?
Okay.
So this could be a ratio of the total number of applications on similar roles. So let's say we look at SD1 roles in Bangalore.
Mm-hmm.
Now we would, so there are two metrics to look at here. One metric is the number of consulting listings upon the total listings,
Right.
and the number of total applications, the number of applications on consulting listings upon the total number of applications. So
Okay.
these two metrics will tell us how big of a trade-off is it, right?
Okay.
So the metric should not be here, should not be listing loss due to consultant access removal. The
Right.
metric here should be applicant loss due to
Got
consulting action removal. But since these applications are being routed directly to the original listing, currently my hypothesis is that this will stay the same. But we will validate this by doing a controlled grayscale release to, let's say, 10% of consultants, 10% of listings, 5% of listings, and validate over this small chunk of the segment.
got it. Got it. Got it. Great. So to wrap, like to summarize, basically, like there are two things that I can remember from like your basic value proposition is that one is consultants don't put out listings, they own the listing.
Right.
And second is a consultant marketplace where companies can sort of filter out the right consultants, or if some consultant wants to own their listing, the company can evaluate if they
Right.
want to give it to them.
Right.
So how does the like sourcing process work for a consultant in such a model?
Right. So in this user flow, what happens is that the consultant looks at listings which have a filter that open to consultants.
Okay.
For this, so this is the outbound process where they go and request people. They
Right.
check the listing and they apply to the recruiter and Naukri. The
Right.
recruiter immediately gets the metrics that we discussed, which was TAT, approval rate, and responsiveness, which is effectively
Right.
NPS, right?
Right.
Of this candidate, the application goes to them, and they can decide either to accept or reject this consulting proposal. They can
Right.
look at the pricing that these people are proposing, etc. All of it is on the platform, so
Right.
it's one click. So upon approve, they can come in and actually start the consulting process, wherein the HR person on the other end hands over the flow of this listing to this consulting firm, right?
Okay. Okay.
This is the outbound process. The
Right.
inbound process would be that since they also exist on the marketplace,
Right.
various HRs of organizations will be reaching out to them in their Naukri inbox, telling them we want you to own this listing for us and get us candidates in these number of candidates in this amount of time.
Right.
Right.
And so what I wanted to understand more was like once a consultant has been approved and he's owning the particular listing,
Mhm.
how does he go ahead and source candidates? Like his major value add is like the ability to go outbound and call people and source and bring people
So
on.
this solution doesn't actually solve for sourcing
Okay.
because my hypothesis here is that sourcing is not broken.
Okay.
From the actual candidate's perspective, if I am a prospective candidate looking for a job, I don't care if a actual HR of a org is calling me or a consultant is calling me. All I care about is what is the job, how much does it pay me, what role is it giving, offering me, and so on. Right.
Right.
So the sourcing that happens is something that we are not looking at solving here because independent of where these candidates are being sourced, we care about is that these candidates end up on our platform.
Right.
So this is just tying back to the original question, right? So if we solve independently for consultants, it won't remain a LinkedIn versus Naukri kind of scenario, right?
Right.
So we are keeping the sourcing process intact, just making sure that the value of that sourcing is absorbed in Naukri.
Okay. Got it. Got it. Great. Anything else you want to add or like summarize? Maybe.
Right. So to summarize, um, this problem solves. So we have built two things. We have built a consultant marketplace, and we have built removal of duplicate job listings, which is effectively a feature through owning of listings by the HR. Right.
Right.
This one makes Naukri a less cluttered job marketplace. Two gives company HRs clarity and reporting and feedback process on how to hire, train, and get value out of consultants. This
Right.
will lead to a network migration of both consultants and recruiters, since in a three-way marketplace, wherever one entity is there, the others automatically migrate there. And this strategy might eventually help us win this part of the customer segment, which is HRs at MNC tech firms.
Got it. Got it. Got it. Great. So I'll just give some. I'll probably summarize and like give my feedback about
Absolutely.
the whole exercise. So it was great that you started with like bifurcating the different stakeholders that are there, like the user, the candidate, the recruiter, the consultant, and the problem that we picked up is also quite unique and like it's already a unique differentiator because this is something that platforms are not addressing. Most of them are looking at either increasing candidates or increasing recruiters. So the consultant piece of the puzzle is like very interesting. So that was quite nice. And uh, the consultant owning the listing, that's a really nice idea that instead of having multiple people putting up listings, consultants don't put up and just own the listing and along with the HR of the company. And the metrics by which you evaluate the consultants, that is also pretty great, like the TAT, the quality, SLA, provided that we can track all this on the platform itself. uh, I think, yeah, maybe like one thing you could have mentioned is like uh, the trade-off, probably, like like where the slip-ups can happen, like where in the process that consultants or recruiters kind of go offline, because I think like that is one of the biggest issues these days with the consultant ecosystem, that a lot of things happen offline, and how are they incentivized to actually stay on the platform, and by that we can get to track what they do on the platform. uh, Overall, like overall it was great. Like I like the approach, and I like the problem that you chose, the consultant ecosystem, and the kind of solutions you have given. Maybe like you, over the process of answering, you would have also thought of some things, and like, or you can like tell about your approach to problems in general, like how do you generally approach such problems?
Yeah. So typically, when approaching these kind of questions, I try to stay in spaces. So the ideal way in my approach is to move from to start always from the customer space. where you are neither thinking about the question posed to you or the solution you will build, and just think about the various customers that are using this product, whatever it is that you're working on. From the customer space, you choose one customer segment, and then you go to the problem space. Then you
Right.
look at only the problems that this customer is facing. Even right now, you are not looking at solving anything. You are just looking at listing down the problems, and then you look at, so there is a principle called Pareto's principle, which is 80-20 principle. So
Right.
80% of the impact comes from 20% of the work. So
Right.
we choose the one problem for the chosen customer segment which we want to solve, and then only we move to the solution space, right?
Right.
And while solving the solution space, if you noticed, I was constantly coming back to the problem space in
Right.
terms of is it that we are trying to solve for.
Right.
So in my approach, moving from the customer space to the problem space to the solution space is a good mental model for answering design questions, as it keeps you grounded and rooted in the actual question.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I observe that, like, because uh like it's easy to get distracted by, let's say, even after you've chosen the problem to solve for consultants, that like you get distracted by wanting more candidates coming. So I saw that, like, you mentioned that, like, we are not solving for the candidate retention part or like the user engagement part, but this is like the problem and the stakeholder that we have chosen is like candidate, I mean, the consultant and the recruiter. So I think that's important because like it's such a recruitment, and this problem is a very broad problem statement. So unless you're able to narrow it down, like you won't look focused in the interview.
Right. So yeah, the it comes back to the funda that a problem too big to solve is fundamentally unsolvable.
Right.
So a generic solution won't work in most of these scenarios, especially for marketplaces. It's always good to delve down and solve a single problem. The other approach that I wanted to share with the people who are observing is to form the sentences in your head before you start talking. Because I had posted this in the FlinkUp channel as well, that no matter what interview it is, your communication skills are always being evaluated. So it's always better to speak in terms of clear, coherent sentences and form these sentences in your head. It's always okay to take a couple of minutes from the interviewer while keeping them engaged and form your thoughts out on a piece of paper or a whiteboard or whatever it is that you have in front of you, instead of directly jumping to solutions.
Right. 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 Great. We just have one question. Like, can you do a guesstimate question? So we
Okay.
don't have any questions about this interview. Maybe like maybe after we post it in the group, like maybe people would watch it. I think we have very few people watching right now.
Okay.
I think maybe we can do that some other time. The
Yep.
guesstimate kind of question.
Yeah, so sure, I would be happy to take up a couple of more sessions, uh,
Right.
and we can also look at people who want to post questions on this interview in the FlinkUp channel and respond to them
Right.
over.
Right. Right. Yeah, we can do that. So like overall, great. I mean, I think it was a great first kind of mock interview. Let's improve as we go along. Improve in the sense, like, improve the process of doing this, how to
Absolutely.
get more people involved, and let's figure that out. So, but great again. Thanks for like joining in, and
Yeah,
uh, great stuff. Yeah.
good to be here. All right.
Okay. Bye.